I'm Linda. I'm a housewife in my late 40s. I have two daughters, Sarah, a sophomore in college, and Emily, a senior in high school. Both my family home and my in-laws' home are in the countryside, and my husband, David, is the second son. From an outsider's perspective, it seems like I have an easy life without the typical mother-in-law troubles, which they envy. But all I can do is give a wry smile in response. My husband is the epitome of an old-fashioned, domineering husband. He often brags, "I'm the one earning the money. If you have a problem with that, we can just get a divorce." And does absolutely nothing around the house. When the kids were little, he'd annoyingly insist it would be pitiful for the girls to come home without mother, preventing me from working outside. I don't mind being a housewife or doing household chores. But even when I prepare a dinner of meat and potatoes, spinach salad, and fried mackerel, he complains, "Is this all? You're a housewife, you should do better." And I do all this while entertaining my younger daughter who clings to me, helping my older daughter with her homework, and preparing the bath. When my husband comes home, he just lounges on the sofa in the living room, mindlessly watching TV. He never plays with the girls. Every couple of months, on a whim, he takes them to the park, and on their birthdays, he condescendingly gives them presents, saying, "You can have these because I work. Be grateful to me." He thinks that's enough to show his love for them. Gradually, I started to dislike my husband. He seems to mistake me for a maid rather than a loving wife. But I don't have the financial means to get a divorce. I've convinced myself that if I just endure, things will work out. When I was younger, the term emotional abuse wasn't widely recognized, and every time the topic of divorce came up, my husband would say, "You'll struggle if we split. Someone like you, who's only done housework, is easily replaceable. Not me. My job can't function without me." This made me believe I was the flawed one. Even if I thought about working, the idea of having a boss like my husband and facing criticism at work too was unbearable. "Mom, I hate Dad. He's always so full of himself, but he doesn't do anything. Hey, why don't you divorce him?" I never complained about my husband in front of my daughters, and he usually doesn't say much in front of them either, but kids notice everything. Especially since they're girls. They're very sensitive to his negativity. When he's in a bad mood and likely to take it out on someone, the girls distract him or help with the housework without me having to ask. They are really good daughters. Coming from the countryside, divorces were rare and unusual in my youth. In my area, it was common to hear rumors like that family has a daughter who returned home after a divorce. In the cultural context where my in-laws and husband saw his domineering behavior as normal, I tried my best to endure. I didn't want to cause my daughters any distress because of me. However, as I kept mulling over whether a decisive event would justify a divorce, before I knew it, about 10 years had passed. I no longer have any affection for my husband. Our relationship remains the same, but now that the girls are more independent, I've re-entered the workforce. After working as a temp for a while, I was hired as a full-time employee. My older daughter is now a sophomore in college. And my younger daughter is a senior in high school. With financial stability and finally some peace of mind, I feel ready to divorce at any moment. Then, one day, while out shopping with my daughters, I caught sight of my husband arm in arm with a young woman, being overly affectionate. What baffles me is why he would choose to have a date with his mistress at a shopping mall near a station we frequently visit. I thought he knew we were going shopping today. Does he not care about my daughters and my activities? Or is his crisis management so poor that he didn't consider the possibility of running into us? I really wonder how he can function at work normally. My daughters also noticed him and were disgusted, exclaiming, "Seriously? Cheating? Unbelievable. That woman. She looks about our age, which is just creepy." Their reaction was quite strong. "Mom, we're going to lose sight of them. Let's follow them." They started taking photos and recording videos on their phones, saying, "This is the worst. We'll never forgive him." They seemed even more upset than I was. "Right, let's do that." We blended into the crowd and followed them, only to end up at a surprisingly unexpected place. My husband and the young woman entered a flashy pink shop. A clearly dubious establishment. Wait, this shop is. Isn't this some kind of adult club, not just a regular nightclub, right? Yes, it seems so. Gross, so gross. Mom, you have to divorce him. We need a family meeting today. I don't even want to call him a dada anymore. This is a bit more than I expected. Though my daughters and I were shaken, the shop was specialized in a particular niche. That night, we had a family meeting at home. You're cheating, aren't you? What? What's all this about all of a sudden? We saw you with a young woman this afternoon. Oh, you saw that? It's just a bit of fun with a cute girl. Just playing around. My husband always acts arrogantly in front of me. Even now, he's sitting back in his chair, all puffed up. Playing around? You're married. I earn the money here. Do you think you're in a position to complain about what I do? I'm free to do what I want. You guys can't live without me. So just shut up and obey me. My daughters silently watched our conversation. I sighed and showed him the photos printed from my daughter's phone. Look. We saw you going into that shop too. What? Oh, that's... His flustered demeanor was pitiful. If he didn't want to be caught, he shouldn't have done such things. I didn't know you had such hobbies. The shop my husband entered specialized in infantilism play. Imagining my usually domineering husband in baby cosplay, speaking in baby talk, and seeking affection from employees close to my daughter's ages was just too creepy. Shut up, shut up. I'm a man. You should just be quiet and obey me. Even his blustering didn't scare me anymore. As I looked at him with disdain and cold eyes, he shouted, "What's with that look? Who do you think I am? I'll divorce you." All right, let's get a divorce. He seemed surprised that I agreed. What? You think you can support the family? I'm the one who earns the money here. By now, I was working as a full-time employee and, unbeknownst to him, earning more due to a qualification I obtained. But I had no intention of telling him that. Tell me, then, can you handle all the housework and childcare? What? Of course not. Right. You can't, can you? Criticizing someone for something she can't do herself is just poor manners. I've been doing the things you can't do. We should be grateful to each other, not using it as ammunition for attack. If I hadn't been taking care of the housework, childcare, and you wouldn't have been able to focus on your job. But unlike you, I've never once complained about you not doing housework. This was a matter of pride for me. After our second child was born, my husband didn't help at all with housework or childcare. In fact, he was the one who caused the most trouble. You can't earn money. Anyone can earn money if they work. But you know, trust and family bonds can't be bought with money. They require time and effort to build. Something you never bothered to do. My husband finally fell silent. Perhaps he was unsure how to react since I was not backing down like I usually do during our arguments. It's only natural, considering I've always been the one to clean up after our fights. But it's over now. So that's it. We're getting a divorce, I told my daughters. Then my husband exclaimed, "Hey. I'm taking custody of the kids." You? The one who never did any housework or parenting. What, do you plan to make our daughters do all the chores now? Well, they're girls, and I'm a man. It's time they learned some bridal training. I'm appalled. So, once I'm no longer your maid, our daughters are next, huh? Dad, I'm going with Mom. If it's between living with you or Mom, it's Mom, hands down. Why would we even consider choosing you? Me too. Why should we live with you? What kind of punishment is that? You just brag and do nothing. You all. If you go with your mother, you won't be able to earn money. You'll see the hardship. You won't be able to pay for college. If you only graduate high school, you won't find a good marriage partner. You'll just end up living in poverty. Are you kidding? You think a woman's future is just about getting married? My husband tried to persuade them, but it was completely counterproductive. I wonder how he's so skilled at rubbing people the wrong way. He didn't even realize the girls were utterly rejecting him, let alone understand why. Right. Of course, I'll be expecting child support and alimony. We're divorcing because of your infidelity and years of emotional abuse. And I'm working too. Why do you assume we'll end up poor? You're destroying our family. You'll regret this. Destroying the family? That would be you. I've tolerated more than enough. And I do have regrets. I should have left you sooner. I had been gathering evidence of his emotional abuse in preparation for this day. I kept a diary with records of his verbal abuse and recorded him on my cell phone. I also saved all our text messages. I was fully prepared. And so, my husband and I divorced. When he started to make a fuss during the divorce, I hired a lawyer. Since he tends to be submissive to authority figures, things proceeded smoothly afterward. We sold the house we had been living in, and my husband moved into an apartment alone. My daughters and I started living in a different apartment. We received the child support in a lump sum from the sale of the house. So there's no need to contact my ex-husband anymore. If we ever need to contact him, we decided to do so through our lawyer, and I warned him that if he contacts us directly, I'll show the evidence of his affair to his parents. He's too embarrassed to make any contact now. Then I heard a rumor that my husband got arrested. Turns out the woman he was cheating with wasn't interested in him at all, she was just a sex worker, and their relationship was nothing more than that of a client and a worker. Despite this, my ex-husband persisted, showing up at the club saying, "There's nothing in our way now. Let's get married." He disrupted her work, insisting, "She's my woman," and pleading with her to quit her job and do housework for him. He even found her apartment and showed up at her place. After repeated warnings, he didn't stop, leading to a scuffle with the club's security guards and his eventual arrest for severe stalking. The woman, traumatized by the incident, quit her job and disappeared back to her hometown. To avoid a criminal record, my ex-husband paid a settlement of $10,000, but his arrest became known at his workplace, leading to his resignation. He's been unable to find another job and is living an unemployed life, drained of energy. Serves him right. As for me, my younger daughter got accepted into college. Both my daughters are enjoying their university lives. I've been promoted to a position responsible for training new employees at my workplace, progressing smoothly in my career. My salary has increased, and we celebrated together. As soon as I divorced my husband, everything started going well for me, and I finally grasped happiness. Right after the funeral of my mother-in-law, whom I cherished as my own mother, I received a letter from her. The letter was delivered to my home by a lawyer named John. My name is Emily, and I am 43 years old. The letter began with, "If this letter has reached you, it means I am no longer in this world. I am worried you might be crying." The familiar handwriting of my mother-in-law made tears well up in my eyes. Originally, my father-in-law, whom I never met, had passed away quite young, long before I married James. And it seemed there were almost no close relatives in his family, with virtually no interaction with them. James and I were not blessed with children, so we lived a modest yet happy life with just the three of us, my mother-in-law, James, and me. Especially, my mother-in-law and I had a great relationship, to the extent that James would say, "It's like you two are the real mother and daughter. And I'm the son-in-law." Last year, after James passed away from cancer, leaving just my mother-in-law and me, she suddenly became a victim of a traffic accident. There were many mysteries surrounding the accident. For some reason, she was found collapsed on a road in a different city, far from home, with no known connections, and was hit by a passing car. The police are investigating it from both an accident and a criminal perspective, but the bag she was supposed to have with her hasn't been found. I was questioned by the police too, but there were so many things I didn't understand, and I was too shocked to respond properly. Coping with the sudden loss of my mother-in-law has been really hard. In James's case, we had a year of battling his illness and did everything we could for his treatment. And having my mother-in-law there allowed us both to fully mourn James. We had overcome our grief together and vowed to continue living closely, just the two of us. I was distracted by the funeral and all the bureaucratic procedures, but once everything was over, I suddenly felt very lonely. Both of my parents, who had a family history of cancer, have already passed away. I have a brother, but he lives in a distant countryside with his family. Even when I feel like talking to my old friends from my student days, it's hard to reach out as they are all busy with their kids. Just when I was wondering what to do next, I received a phone call from a man claiming to be a lawyer. Judging by his voice, he seemed to be around my mother-in-law's age, maybe in his 70s. He apologized for being late in learning about my mother-in-law's death and said he had something important to deliver to me as soon as possible. Is it a letter from my mother-in-law? I had never heard that my mother-in-law was in contact with a lawyer. And the idea of receiving a letter from someone who has passed away was baffling. I thought it might be a scam, but if it really was a letter from my mother-in-law, I decided to meet with John. The letter read, "You must be surprised by this sudden letter, but please listen. You are in danger. Believe my words and run away immediately." Upon reading this far, I asked John, "Do you know the contents of this letter? Was my mother-in-law targeted by someone?" The handwriting was definitely my mother-in-law's. Her distinctive style was unmistakable. But the content made no sense to me. It seemed like something out of a drama, almost like a cruel prank. My mother-in-law had died in a traffic accident, but the driver had already been caught. He testified that he found my mother-in-law lying on the road, which delayed his discovery of her. I had been told that she had signs of being hit and probably lost consciousness because of that. If this letter was true, then my mother-in-law knew of someone who had assaulted her. Did she know she was involved in an incident? Then why didn't she run away? I felt tears welling up again. John, composed, said, "I haven't seen the contents, but I think I can guess what it's about." A bit irritated by his roundabout way of speaking, I asked, "So, what did my mother-in-law tell you, John?" "Yes. I was the lawyer for William, and she asked me to help you." "Who is William?" John explained that James actually had a brother 6 years older than him. I had never heard about this from either my mother-in-law or James, nor had I seen any pictures. The lawyer took out a file that looked like documents from a bag placed beside the table. "Did you know, Emily, that half of the heinous crimes in our country occur within the family?" Ironically, the most comforting and supposed happiest place, the family home, is where tragic incidents occur. "Where a dear family member takes the life of another," he said. Showing me an old photo, there were 4 people in it. In the photo were what appeared to be a young couple with a boy and a baby. The young woman was recognizable as my mother-in-law. At first, I thought the young man was a stranger, but he bore a resemblance to James. The boy's face also had features of the young man, clearly showing a family resemblance. They must have taken this photo during a trip to the sea. At the port, with a large ship in the background, all of them were smiling happily. "That boy with the float is William, right?" John said. Looking at the boy, I thought of James's brother, whom I never knew. Despite the apparent happiness in the photo, I couldn't help but feel a pang in my heart, wondering what had gone wrong. Does being his lawyer mean William caused some trouble? Was he the one who attacked my mother-in-law this time? I asked. It must have been at least 15 years ago, around 17 or 18 years if I include the time James and I dated. Otherwise, it would be strange that I knew nothing about it. Yes, William started to withdraw from society due to bullying when he was in the first year of middle school, and 7 years later, he caused an incident, John explained. After becoming a recluse, William became despondent about his future and attempted a murder-suicide with his family. On the night of the incident, he entered his parents' bedroom with a knife. Awakened by the noise, his father grappled with him. His father was seriously injured but managed to subdue William. The incident ended in an attempted crime. However, during the struggle, his mother's screams woke 14-year-old James, who called the police. Police cars and ambulances rushed to the scene, causing a commotion in the quiet residential neighborhood. At that time, words like recluse and neat were becoming social issues. And it seems the media sensationally reported it as a reclusive youth planning a murder-suicide with his family. I thought it sounded familiar but had no idea it was about James's family. Similar news was frequently reported. But the actual people involved couldn't just let it go. Unable to bear the rumors, James' family moved several times, almost like fleeing in the night. Whether due to his severe injuries from that time or subsequent stress, James's father passed away a few years later. James and his mother changed their names to his mother's maiden name and finally settled in their current location, leading a normal life. Both the perpetrator and the victims are family, so in such cases, there's nowhere for the emotions to go. You can't just outright hate or resent someone. It's confusing for anyone to suddenly be in such a complex situation. And living under public scrutiny, rumors, and bashing is incredibly harsh. I hope you can understand the feelings of the deceased who couldn't tell you about this, John concluded. I was speechless at the overwhelming story. I had never thought about what happens to a family after such an incident, but life goes on as long as you're alive. For his parents, William was also their beloved child. In the photo John showed me, William, who looked a lot like James, was smiling. But the misaligned button that led to the worst tragedy remained uncorrected. Afterward, William was sentenced to prison. John continued, as I mentioned earlier, I was William's lawyer. Even in attempted crimes, the same penalties as completed ones apply. With imprisonment of no less than 5 years and up to 20. I interrupted him, a minimum of 5 years? Does that mean William might have already been released? Yes, he was actually released about 2 years ago, John confirmed. According to John, the prosecutor's office has a system called victim notification. If you apply after the judgment is finalized, you can be notified about the perpetrator's scheduled release and the fact of their release. Even so, my mother-in-law was William's biological mother. She had been informed about his post-release residence. Around that time, James's cancer was discovered, and he was undergoing treatment, my mother-in-law, not wanting to worry him, couldn't discuss it with James. William told me that he committed the crime out of despair about his future, but John hesitated a bit before revealing, it seems it was actually for money to play games. William, having been a recluse for many years, had started secretly using his mother's credit card for online gaming and shopping. He was frequently scolded by his father for this. On the evening of the crime, he had spent a substantial amount of money on game weapons, leading to his computer being confiscated. William lied to John about the reason for the crime, and his father, mother, and James, who knew the truth, said nothing. Did the family, hoping that William would sincerely reflect and serve his sentence, choose not to disclose the internal strife to protect him from further defamation? In fact, my mother-in-law had occasionally visited William in prison. Each time, she returned disappointed, finding that he showed no remorse and hadn't changed. She was afraid of living with William again after his release. Not only the threat of violence, but also knowing that if her son or she passed away, William would likely come to me for money. As his release date approached, the paperwork became more complicated. Deciding where he would live was another issue. The worried mother-in-law consulted John, who helped with the procedures. Where has William been living for the past 2 years? I asked. John informed me that through him, my mother-in-law had rented an apartment for William and provided financial support. He apparently did his shopping online. She had given him money from her savings, her retirement funds, and even the inheritance she would receive upon James's death. After his release, William reverted to being a recluse and didn't work. When my mother-in-law, through John, conveyed, I couldn't support you forever and wanted you to work, William vehemently refused. He said, doesn't Mom care about me at all? She always favored my brother. Not giving me money is his doing. John recounted. Of course, the accident might have been a coincidence, but the deceased was worried that William might do something. He kept persistently asking me for money, John added. William had been aggressive even towards John, inquiring in detail about his mother's income and the current lives of his father and brother. It concerns me that the deceased was found near William's apartment. Fortunately, he doesn't know our address, but at that moment, I remembered the missing bag. The doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone else but John. Excuse me for a moment, I said, heading to the door. A bad feeling crept over me. Through the peephole, I saw a man who looked like James standing there. In his hand, he was holding a bag that my mother-in-law used to carry before she passed away. I stepped back and returned to the living room to alert John. I think that might be William. He's holding his mother's bag. My voice quivered with tension, and John's face tensed. "Call the police now." His expression seemed to urge, but in my panic, I dashed out the back door and ran to the nearby police station. Had my mother-in-law and James anticipated this situation in the future? Or did they unconsciously choose a house near the police station? Now, it's unclear. When the police officers I brought with me arrived, William tried to flee but was caught and taken in for questioning. The man who looked so much like James was indeed William, my brother-in-law. John had referred to him as William, and having seen the old family photos, I too had called him that, but in reality, he was an unhealthy-looking middle-aged man. The resemblance to James annoyed me strangely. This man had caused so much suffering for my mother-in-law and James. I came here just to get my share. There's an inheritance from Mom, right? And I heard that my brother died last year. Give me my share of the inheritance. William yelled at me, ignoring the police officer's questions. I couldn't believe his audacity. I felt sympathy for his troubled childhood, being bullied and dropping out of school. But his subsequent actions were selfish and unforgivable. Above all, I wanted to confront him. "You're holding your mother's bag, aren't you? What did you do to her? Did you harm that frail woman?" My question drew the attention of the officers to the bag William was holding. He tried to hide it, but it was too late. One of the officers reached for it, and William even tried to bite the officer. "Hey! That's my money. What choice did I have? Mom said this was the last time." She was being insolent. So I just hit her a few times to teach her a lesson. I was horrified by William's mindset. He was completely irrational and unrepentant. And then he turned to me, "Hey, you're my brother's wife, right? Both Mom and my brother are gone. You have the obligation to take care of me now." Maybe my mother-in-law and James had feared this situation, and that's why they didn't tell me about William. They thought if I didn't know, I wouldn't get involved. "No, Emily has no such obligation." John interjected, but I doubted that law meant anything to William. He was the ultimate, invincible person, with nothing to lose. Unbound by common sense or law. Maybe that's why my mother-in-law never wanted me to meet him. What a difficult life she must have led. I hadn't finished reading the letter, but my mother-in-law, knowing her life was in danger, had left it for me, worrying about my safety. Her suffering and sadness were heart-wrenching. "Because of you, my mother-in-law and James suffered so much. I will never forgive you. You will face the full extent of the law." Certainly, the immediate cause of her death was being hit by a car. But he had left her unconscious on the road. He was not someone who should be free in society. I vowed to make sure he was sent back to prison. Seeing my determination, John stood beside me and offered, "I will help you with this." William was taken away by the police. Based on the blood and circumstantial evidence found in my mother-in-law's bag, he was identified as the perpetrator and ended up back in prison. Back home with John, I finished reading my mother-in-law's letter. It was filled with apologies and love for me. Especially the ending, "Life is still long. Emily, you deserve to live a happier and freer life," brought me to tears. My name is Elizabeth. I divorced my husband 10 years ago and now live with my daughter, Sophie. Sophie is a senior in high school. This spring, she will graduate from high school and has decided to go to college. I couldn't afford to send her to college on my income alone, but Sophie got in through a recommendation, so her tuition is completely waived. It's truly a blessing for me. We have been through a lot since I divorced when Sophie was in elementary school. I often think of myself as a failed mother, but I've been relying on Sophie's kindness. It all started 20 years ago. I married my husband, Michael. Michael's family home was a traditional house. My father-in-law, who welcomed us, was an old-fashioned and kind man, fitting for the house. But the problem was my mother-in-law. Even when I was dating Michael, she seemed not to like me. She doted on Michael. The first thing she said to me after my self-introduction was, "Elizabeth, what's with that short skirt? And isn't your makeup too flashy for visiting your boyfriend's family?" I was wearing a knee-length dress that day. And my makeup was my usual natural look. Although my father-in-law defended me, Michael just nodded along with his mother's words. We didn't stay long that day, but it was still mentally draining for me. I thought life would be gloomy with such a mother-in-law. Yet, Michael said it wouldn't matter much as we wouldn't see each other often after marriage. Indeed, unless we lived together, it seemed unlikely we'd see each other daily. His words somehow reassured me. My indecisiveness swayed my life choices. After dating Michael for 2 years, we decided to get married when he got promoted. His proposal was the classic "I will definitely make you happy." To me, it was a delightful and ideal proposal. Of course, if he had lived up to his words. But married life with Michael was far from ideal. Initially, he wanted me to quit my job and be a homemaker, but as soon as I quit, he started saying terrible things. Must be nice being a housewife without a job. No kids and still not working, what a luxury. Being timid, I couldn't talk back. When I considered part-time work, he accused me again. Looking for a part-time job to find a lover, huh? I was confused about what to do. Then I became pregnant and had our daughter without ever working. I'll never forget what my mother-in-law said when she visited the hospital. Having a girl, what about the family heir? I remember my father-in-law quietly getting angry at her words. My husband has a brother, so he could be the heir, she sarcastically remarked. I thought then it would be fine if our relationship ended. But reality was harsh. About 6 months after my daughter was born, an incident occurred. My mother-in-law had an affair, and my father-in-law was furious, demanding a divorce. Their home was about a 2-hour drive away, so we didn't meet often and I didn't know the details. But it was true she had an affair, and as a result, my father-in-law decided to divorce her. My mother-in-law came to our house crying. It was honestly a nuisance, as Sophie, my daughter, was still young. Yet, Michael allowed her to stay with us, saying it would be fine for a while. Michael, who was doted on by her, sided with his mother over his father, always believing she was right. I expressed my concerns about living together to Michael, but he gently told me, "Sophie is young, and it must be hard for you, Elizabeth. Wouldn't it be less of a burden if Mom stayed? Besides, it's just until she finds a place to live." I wasn't convinced, but decided to endure it. However, my mother-in-law would call me away without hesitation even when I was taking care of Sophie. She left all the household chores to me and even complained about the meals. Instead of reducing the burden, it only increased. Despite the initial talk of it being temporary, she showed no signs of looking for another place. As I was concerned about societal judgment of single mother, I just endured it. Day by day, I became numb, even able to ignore my mother-in-law's words. I was scolded every time, but I kept enduring, letting the words wash over me. Years passed with no progress on her moving out, and Sophie started elementary school. Sophie grew up quiet, just like me. My mother-in-law didn't like that, complaining to Sophie as well. Thinking being quiet is cute? Such an indecisive personality, just like Elizabeth. Oh, how annoying. That's when I seriously started considering divorce. Michael was rarely home, citing his busy work, and never stood up to his mother. Then, when Sophie was 8, the moment came. Michael's affair was discovered. The other woman was a clerk at a business partner. Unable to bear this life any longer, I chose divorce immediately. I had been thinking about working again since I suspected the affair, and had contacted my former boss and colleagues. Luckily, my former boss, who had started his own business, offered me a job, so Sophie and I could manage on our own. When I presented the divorce papers to Michael, he and his mother attacked me. "How will you live after divorce without a job? It's because the wife isn't competent that the husband turns to an affair, right?" I was so angry I wanted to retort, but no words came out. During this confrontation, Sophie woke up and came to me. "Mom, what's wrong?" She jumped into my arms, looking up at me with concern. I realized I was the only one who could protect her. With that thought, I found strength. "I won't be manipulated by you anymore. I'm getting a divorce." I said that, loaded our prepared bags and Sophie into the car, and left the house. Later, with a lawyer's help, I filed for alimony and child support, and the divorce was finalized. Of course, I also claimed compensation from the other woman. There was a brief relief when she paid the compensation. But Michael only paid alimony and child support once. I tried contacting him for the payments. I've moved and it's hard to live alone now. Just wait a bit. I naively waited. Upon further research, I found out that only 24% of single-mother households actually receive child support. Additionally, even among those who initially received child support, the percentage of single-mother households that eventually stop receiving payments due to discontinuation is as high as 15%. In other words, 3 out of 4 single mothers are not receiving child support, a seriously critical situation. I never realized this until I was in that position. Busy with work and Sophie's school, I had no time to think about it, just struggling to survive. Sophie, being a child of a single mother, was bullied at school, and I was desperate to protect her. 10 years have passed since those days. When Sophie was about to graduate from high school, Michael and my mother-in-law suddenly visited. I was shocked and speechless, wondering how they found our place. But I couldn't afford to lose this battle. "What do you want?" Michael, without any sense of guilt, replied. "Mom says we need an heir, so can you return our daughter?" His words made my blood boil. Return her? Sophie isn't an object. Besides, someone who doesn't pay child support has no right to see her. Isn't Sophie 18 now? Are you still treating her like a child? As Michael spouted incomprehensible things, my mother-in-law started saying something even more absurd. "Sophie would have an easier life living with us than with you. We'll come to pick her up tomorrow, so be ready," she said. Wait a minute. What do you mean by heir? Since Michael isn't remarrying, we're worried about the future. It would be troublesome if something happened to me. Are they planning to use Sophie as a carer for my mother-in-law? I couldn't bear the thought after raising my daughter with so much care. Michael, laughing, continued. Plus, Dad's not going to be around much longer. So, we're planning to live in his house. Since our parent-child relationship hasn't been severed, I'll inherit the family home and assets. Despite the affair and divorce? You're returning to your father's house? My exclamation enraged my mother-in-law. Don't dig up something that happened years ago. As I realized I had unintentionally hit a nerve, Sophie returned from school. Seeing her, Michael rushed over. Sophie. It's your dad. You've grown so much. My mother-in-law followed suit. Starting tomorrow, you'll live with your dad and grandma. Sophie, initially puzzled, then burst into laughter. Huh? Grandma, are you okay, in the head? Have you gone senile? Her response angered my mother-in-law even more. What a way to talk. Elizabeth, how did you raise her? As my mother-in-law tried to grab me, Sophie stepped in. She brushed off my mother-in-law's hand and assumed a judo throw position. Alarmed, I raised my voice. Sophie, wait. Sophie paused, looking startled, and released her hold on my mother-in-law. After Michael and I divorced, Sophie became a target of bullying. One day, she suddenly expressed a desire to learn judo. It seemed abrupt, so I asked her why. She told me someone who practiced judo had protected her from bullies on her way home from school. Watching from afar, she thought becoming strong in judo would make her fearless against the bullies. I wanted to fulfill my daughter's wish, so I let her take judo lessons. Sophie improved rapidly. Her quiet personality transformed, becoming more assertive and better at socializing. Now, she's like a different person, strong and confident. In high school, she even competed in national competitions, earning her a college recommendation for judo. Michael and my mother-in-law were visibly shaken by Sophie's transformation. So, what do you want from me? Intimidated by Sophie's presence, Michael and my mother-in-law left hastily. After I explained everything, Sophie sighed deeply, then looked serious. Can we visit Grandpa? We hadn't been in touch with my father-in-law since the divorce, even though he had always been kind to us. The following weekend, I took Sophie to visit her grandfather. My father-in-law, who welcomed us, looked healthier than the stories we had heard suggested. After explaining the situation to him, he sighed deeply. I'm sorry for all the trouble I've caused you and Sophie. Even after the divorce, he apologized. It turned out that Michael's assumption about his father's health was premature, and Sophie and I were relieved. Then, unexpected visitors arrived. "Why are you two here?" It was my mother-in-law and Michael. I responded firmly. "I brought Sophie to see her grandfather because she wanted to visit him. You, having been divorced, shouldn't have any business here, right?" My father-in-law also raised his voice. "Elizabeth is right. Get out of here. Michael, I've severed ties with you as a son. And don't you dare come back. I won't leave a penny of my estate to either of you." Sophie delivered the final blow to the agitated pair. "I tend to throw people around when I'm angry. Are you sure you want to stay?" Hearing this, Michael and my mother-in-law froze. "Don't ever show your faces here again." My words sent them fleeing. After that, Sophie and her grandfather rekindled their relationship. About once a month, Sophie and I would visit him, and he's still healthy. Thanks to my father-in-law's help, we got a lawyer and demanded the unpaid alimony and child support from Michael. To our surprise, he paid everything in one lump sum. Furthermore, through the lawyer, we arranged an agreement that Michael and my mother-in-law would never approach us again. Michael and my mother-in-law ended up penniless, both working day and night. I feel joyful supporting Sophie, who is thriving in judo at college. Supported by various people, we mother and daughter have found happiness. I hope for even more happiness for Sophie. Hey, what's with this pathetic meal? This is why I hate coming to your modest family home. Here we go again. This woman, as usual, looks down on my husband and me with disdain. Seriously, I've come all the way here to visit my family home. And you could at least say, "Thank you for coming," and maybe offer something fancy like top-grade beef, right? Oh, but of course, you guys, being modest florists, probably have never even tasted such a thing. Ashley, that's way too much. Can you please take back everything you just said? As I say this, Ashley, our eldest son's wife, becomes infuriated. Huh? Who do you think you are to talk like that? You should remember your place. You're only able to supply flowers to our company out of Brandon's pity. And just so you know, if I wanted, I could cancel that contract in a heartbeat. I couldn't help but sigh. Until now, I've been patient because she is our precious son's wife, but I've reached my limit. Ashley, if you feel that strongly, why don't you go ahead and cancel that contract? It might clear the air for both of us. Oh, really? You're saying that? Don't come crying to me later when you regret it. With that, Ashley stormed out of our house with great bluster. I wonder what will happen now. But I'm not worried about us. I'm more concerned about what will become of Ashley. After all, she's the one who will end up regretting and coming back to us. My name is Margaret. I'm 65 and run a small flower shop with my husband. Although most shops buy flowers from specialized markets, we cultivate flowers on the farmland that has been in my husband's family for generations and sell them in our own store. It's hard work, but being able to sell what we've grown ourselves makes it enjoyable. Lately, we even have customers who contact us from afar, saying they can only find certain flowers at our shop. It's moments like these that make me truly grateful for our business. We have a son we're very proud of. His name is Brandon. Now 30, he owns a successful company. He started the business after winning a student entrepreneurship contest in college and went on to great success. We contributed to his startup funds, albeit modestly. For us at the time, it wasn't an easy sum to part with, but it was all for the love of our child. Brandon cleverly combined the trending field of AI with our family's horticultural business, riding the wave of the times for a smooth and successful start. Since then, the company has grown significantly, going public and increasing in value, and with Brandon's handsome looks. He's even been featured in magazines as one of the top 10 young entrepreneurs to watch and venture business leaders carrying the future. Every time we hear such news, my husband and I would laugh and say, "Our son is too good for us." It's like a kite producing an eagle. Those were truly happy times. And we mistakenly thought that happiness would last forever. Everything changed when Brandon brought Ashley home as his fiancée. "Dad, Mom, I've brought someone I want you to meet today." Brandon had said this before coming to our house. Hearing those words, my husband and I were overjoyed. Our son Brandon, our pride and joy. He was finally bringing home his fiancée. What kind of woman could have captured the heart of Brandon? Would she be like the ideal woman who reflects a mother's image in a son's eyes, perhaps someone like me? Back then, I was embarrassingly excited. I even considered saving for our future grandchild instead of preparing an attire for the wedding. But after all, he's our only son, our pride and joy. It's only natural to feel that way. So, when Brandon actually arrived with Ashley, it was quite a shock. Ashley, a former magazine reader model, was strikingly flashy, like a TV actress. She carried a bag with a prominent foreign brand logo, wore bracelets, and her clothes seemed more suited for a party. In one word, she was out of place. And most importantly, upon entering our house, she whispered so that Brandon couldn't hear. "What is this modest house? It's quite different from what I expected. To think this simple, humble place is his family home." I was stunned by her unmistakable muttering. Yet, I told myself not to judge her by this alone. After all, she was the woman Brandon had chosen. There must be something wonderful about her. With that thought, I redirected myself and led her to the living room. Ashley, formally introduced by Brandon in the living room, was the polar opposite of her earlier muttering, greeting us demurely and politely. "It's such a privilege to be in this wonderful home. Brandon's parents are such a fantastic couple. We hope to be as happy as you two are." At that moment, perhaps I was blinded by the fact of Brandon's engagement, so no matter how insincere her words sounded, I convinced myself that it's fine because Brandon chose her and celebrated their union. Ashley, build a happy home with Brandon. Treat this house like your own and feel free to visit anytime. Yes. I'll definitely do that. Margaret, I love you. Soon after, they got formally engaged and then quickly married, but the period leading up to the marriage was too short. Looking back, it was probably all orchestrated by Ashley to not lose her ticket to a better life with Brandon. Because right after getting married, Ashley showed her true colors. "Hey, Ashley, isn't it about time you went back to your own house?" When I said this, Ashley, lounging on our sofa and engrossed in her cell phone game, retorted, "Why should I? You said it yourself, feel at home here." So, I'm just doing as told. It's been like this every day. At the wedding, Ashley had indeed said, "I will take care of the house and serve Brandon warm meals every day. I'll show you what a great wife I can be." But the Ashley after that statement was a completely different person, doing nothing at all. She hires cleaners for housekeeping. Most of the food is brought from our house. Cleaning? Why should I do it? Cooking? That's just not my thing. In this day and age, you can pay for everything, why bother doing it yourself? It's not even your money, you know? Shut up. Brandon's my wallet, so it's fine. He's satisfied to be married to a beauty like me. This woman is unbelievable. I keep wondering why Brandon married her, sighing every day. Brandon is currently busy with a new business venture, leaving everything at home to Ashley. Moreover, on the rare occasions he comes home, she hires a housekeeper, pretending she cooked the meals herself. The rest of the time, she's lounging at our place, doing whatever she wants. It's as if I've become her housekeeper. I want to talk to Brandon about this, but as Ashley said, his company is in the midst of launching a crucial new business, leaving him little time. And Brandon himself feels guilty for not being at home and unable to be with Ashley. Recently, he messaged me, "Mom, I'm in this situation. So I'm counting on you to look after Ashley. I've told her to use my money freely." That's why Ashley is getting more and more out of control. Can this really be called a marriage? Is Brandon truly happy? I want sushi today. Hey, order some takeout, Margaret. Ashley. Before I could say something, Ashley interrupts me again. "Oh, and make sure to order the premium sushi." Sigh. I let out yet another sigh, the count of which I've lost track of. But perhaps if it were just a matter of sighing, things might have been better. Because this woman, Ashley, has finally crossed an unforgivable line. It was during their first summer holiday after getting married. Brandon was busy with work, so only Ashley came to our house. As soon as she arrived, she said, "Hey, why don't you sell this house and move into a senior living facility? Then, we can demolish this place, build an apartment building, and make money." I couldn't comprehend what she was saying at first. Ashley continued, "The house is modest, but the land is spacious. We could build a sizable apartment complex. You enjoy your life in a senior living facility, and we get rental income. It's a win-win." "What are you talking about? Demolishing our house and sending us to a senior living facility? Why do you get to decide that?" "Shut up. You'll be 70 in a few years, right? Then you'll probably need more support and care. I absolutely refuse to take care of you too. So how about considering a senior living facility now, okay? It's better to plan ahead." I couldn't believe it. To treat her husband's parents like they were disposable, like something from a folktale. And to say, it's better to plan ahead, no less. Is this woman really the same as us? And above all, why did Brandon choose such a woman? My mind raced with these thoughts, and everything seemed to go dark before my eyes. Oblivious to my state, Ashley kept talking. "Hey, what's with this unimpressive food? This is why I dislike coming to this modest family home. Here we go again. As usual, this woman condescends to my husband and me. I've bothered to come back to my family home, so at times like this, you should at least say, 'Thank you for coming,' and offer something special like top-grade beef, right? Oh, and of course the best quality. You modest florists probably have never even tasted such a thing." As I stood there dumbfounded, my husband silently began to clear the table. Then he quietly said to Ashley, "That's enough. Don't ever come back." His words seemed to wake me up. Indeed, this was no time to be silent. "Ashley, that's way too much. Can you please take back everything you just said?" When I said this, Ashley became infuriated. "Huh? Who do you think you are? You're only able to supply flowers to our company because of Brandon's pity. And just so you know, I could cancel that contract anytime I feel like it. You should know your place." I couldn't help but sigh. I had been patient until now because she was our precious son's wife, but I had reached my limit. Awakened by my husband's words, I no longer had any patience for this woman's talk. "Ashley, if you feel that way, why don't you go ahead and cancel that contract? It might clear the air for both of us." "Oh, you think it's okay to say that? Don't come crying to me later when you regret it." With that, Ashley stormed out of our house with great bluster. I wonder what will happen now. But I'm not worried about us. I'm more concerned about what will become of Ashley. After all, she's the one who will end up regretting and coming back to us. "Brandon. Your parents are being horrible to me." "Ashley. What's going on?" "I have an important meeting with a major shareholder right now. Because your parents are bullying me. I can't take it anymore." "Hey, let's make your parents understand their place. Cancel the flower supply contract with your family florist, for me, Brandon." Ashley's sudden tirade at the company left Brandon flustered. "That's a serious matter, I need to discuss it with the major shareholders. After all, the flowers from our family florist are important." Cutting Brandon off, Ashley continued. "Then I'll talk to this major shareholder. If a beauty like me pleads with tears, any man would agree." Truly, this woman had stopped trying to hide her true nature. It seemed about time for me to intervene. "Ashley, that's not going to work." Ashley was surprised to see me suddenly appear. But this was just the beginning. "Listen, Ashley. The major shareholder of this company is me." "What?" "Yes, it's true. When Brandon was starting this company during his student days, we contributed a significant amount. And when the company grew successfully and went public, we acquired many shares as a return on our early investment. For Brandon, having his parents as major shareholders meant the company was protected from profit-driven buying and selling, a safety measure. Ashley, too bad for you. Your beauty, your tearful pleas, they mean nothing to me. They are as worthless as trash. As I said this, I couldn't help but let out a laugh. So the major shareholder. That's why the company has been buying those unique flowers from the family florist. That's it. It's profit conveyance. I'll report you to the authorities.
Ah.
She really is a hopeless case. All I could do was sigh. Brandon took over to explain. What are you talking about? The flowers we grow at home are rare species successfully cultivated only there in the US. The growth of our company is all thanks to the flowers my parents have cultivated. What? I didn't know that. Not know? I've told you so many times. You really haven't listened to anything, have you? Even Brandon seemed astonished. Well, it's okay. I was lucky to find out today. Oh, let's just forget about what I said earlier. It was all just a misunderstanding. Ashley tried to backpedal when she realized her position was unfavorable. But for us, a mere misunderstanding wasn't enough. And there was still something I had to say to her. Ashley, I have a question for you. Did you tell my parents to sell their house and put them in a senior living facility to build an apartment? Naturally, Ashley couldn't feign innocence in front of me. She hurriedly started making excuses. Oh, that was... my kindness. You're in your 60s, your legs must be weak, right? So I thought you'd be happier in a senior living facility. It wasn't for the apartment. Really? Trust me, Brandon. Her attempt to manipulate Brandon with tears was too late. Having heard everything from me and witnessed Ashley's true nature, Brandon couldn't be swayed by her insincere pleas anymore. Sigh. I can't trust you anymore. We're done. Let's get divorced. Faced with the word divorce from Brandon, Ashley seemed to realize there was no escape. Fine. I'll divorce you too. But remember, you're the one who suggested it. I'll demand a hefty alimony. Ashley still seemed to think she could win. Don't think this is over. But those words were more fitting for us. She needed to be taught a lesson. Months later, the divorce between Brandon and Ashley was finalized, with a substantial alimony payment. The payer of the alimony was not Brandon, but Ashley. Because she had been caught cheating. Brandon had suspected her and hired a private detective. The investigation revealed that Ashley was having an affair with a salesman from a major real estate company. Her extravagant credit card spending was mostly for luxuries with her lover. And the detective's report was filled with photos of Ashley visiting lavish hotels with her affair partner. With this irrefutable evidence, Brandon successfully demanded alimony from Ashley. Initially, Ashley boasted, "With my beauty, I'll find a rich man to pay this." But her self-indulgent married life had taken a toll on her once stunning figure. Thus, it's no surprise that she ended up without anyone willing to associate with her. If she had dedicated herself to married life with Brandon, focusing on daily chores like cleaning and shopping, she probably wouldn't have let herself go so much. Thinking about it, this situation is the result of her self-indulgent lifestyle, where she solved everything with money, cooking, laundry, cleaning. All of it. To me, it's a case of just desserts. Since then, Brandon has been saying he'll enjoy being single for a while, relishing his bachelorhood. However, I can't let go of my selfish wish to see my grandchildren soon, so I've been secretly searching for a suitable partner for him. Thanks to this, my legs have grown stronger, and I even got a stamp of approval from my doctor on their robustness. So, it looks like I won't be needing the care of a senior living facility for a while longer. Today, I'm off to a tea party, which is actually a mission to find a potential match for my son, relying on contacts I know.